Welcome back, everyone. This is part 3, the final part for today for, Wednesday, August 28th, 2013. All right, I'm going to cover some eco-terrorism, eugenics, all kinds of stuff, including GMOs. Power grid down drill will be conducted by U.S. government. They said the vulnerabilities are finally garnering some attention by government officials, at least that's what the cover story is. The electrical grid joint drill simulations being planned in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So go figure, huh? The North American Union. Thousands of utility workers, which are basically government workers, FBI agents, and anti-terrorism experts, government agencies, I wonder who they could be, and more than 150 private businesses are involved in a November power grid drill. So yeah, they'll basically simulate physical cyber attacks. Physical and cyber attacks. So it's funny too because they're going to test it. They're going to test how to stop, it being attacked. But they basically say it's antiquated. It's old, right? The most neglected pieces of integral infrastructure. But they spend shitloads of money on wars. We have sundial down, looming weak solar max may herald frosty times, and this was from August 6th. You've probably seen this or heard of this before. The current solar activity cycle, possibly the weakest 100 years, is approaching its maximum. This may signal a future low period for the sun, probably not unlike the one caused by the so-called Little Ice Age from the mid-16th to 19th century. Regular recordings of the phenomenon have been available since the middle of the 18th century, with the star's activity reaching peak about every 11 years. The current solar cycle 24 is about to pass its prime in a matter of months. So it's funny too because this is coming out and it's blatantly obvious that this is what they were blaming global warming on, and they were blaming people on it for basically the result of what they did in the early 1900s, which is introduce industrialization so that they can fuel what they have now, which is robots, drones, computers. And that's why, like I said before, when you start seeing these elites going off planet to wherever they're going, space stations, you should be a little wary because then they could just possibly get rid of us, because at that particular point, when everything's automated, they won't need us anymore. Something I noticed right before I left this page was they're saying that this thing is being described as a practice unlike anything the real power grid has ever experienced. It will focus primarily on how governments will react if the electrical grid fails and, for instance, the food supply chain collapses. Well, they know what's going to happen. Climate theories crumble as data and experts suggest global cooling. This is from August 21st. According to the experts, most recent revelations continue to make a mockery of alarmist claims, debunking UN theories about human-caused global warming and wildly inaccurate supposed climate models used to forecast doom and gloom by forces seeking carbon taxes and more centralized government. But it's like I mentioned before, as far as the geoengineering, or what people refer to as chemtrails, I just call them aerosols for weather modification, have been blatantly taking place at least since 1996. So you're talking about almost the last 18, let's say 20 years. And they've been pulsed by pulsing the ionosphere through ground towers and charging the ionosphere and directing it back down. And you'll see it in the form of all these look like little ripples in the clouds, and that's what it is. They're charging these nanoparticles and metallic particles. And it has many reasons for it, including making people sick for population plans, also creating a plasma type effect for defense applications, jamming radar, missiles. But now they're talking about this. We've talked about directed energy weapons, or lasers. Weather could be controlled using lasers. Scientists are attempting to control the weather by using lasers to create clouds, induce rain, and even trigger lightning. So I've mentioned this before. If they're talking about it, they're most likely already doing it, just based off what I've seen in my short 32, almost 33 years on this planet. So this is called engineering consent. These articles are there to engineer consent, so to make people think like they have some kind of say. Kind of like when they're talking about attacking Syria, you see these people in the comment boards, and they'll say, "Oh, it'll take 2 airstrikes and we'll take Assad out." I mean, these are people that are all on board with attacking a Syrian government who's been protecting the people from these terrorists that are being funded by these assholes leaving the comments. So, Just another way of showing that that it's engineer consent. That's kind of the mechanism of how they engineer consent. These people think that they have some kind of say in whether they spray the aerosols or not in the atmosphere. So if they want to pulse lasers, they're going to damn well do it, and they're not going to ask for your permission. And as far as lightning goes, I could tell the lightning that they've been creating has been completely artificial and false. I mean, it's real lightning. It hurts and stuff, causes damage, but you can tell it's not coming from a natural storm front or system. Genetically modified crops pass benefits to weeds. Genetic modification technique used by herbicide resistance, make crops herbicide resistant have been shown to confer advantages on a weedy form of rice, even in the absence of the herbicide. So the findings suggest that the effects of such modification have the potential to extend beyond farms and into the wild. But it goes on here, it says that it can cause more damage. But it says here, this is one of the most clear examples of extremely plausible damaging effects of GM crops on the environment. Next up, failure of GMO crop technologies leads to huge increase of herbicide and pesticide use. I've covered this before. It's reposted or something, but they say back when GMOs were being introduced in the food supply back in the mid-90s, there's a dramatic increase in pesticide use rather than the decrease that we were all promised by the biotech companies as a supposed benefit of GMO. But it goes on here, it says a peer-reviewed journal of environmental science Europe explains today that conventional farmers are dousing their crops with more pesticides than ever. And then Starlink resurfaces, like I said, it's the type of GM corn. It's been banned basically 10 years ago, and it's found in Saudi Arabia. Findings include controversial the Starlink maize that's been banned for human consumption in the U.S. for over 10 years. Contaminated the Saudi food supply. Clone horses are taking over the track. American Quarter Horse Association is the world's largest equine breed registry. Now they're going to get even larger because the court has ruled that they must accept clone horses applications to join their exclusive club. And you've probably heard of this before about these horses dying at an unusual rate. So these race horses, they don't know what it is, right? Kind of like the dolphins while they're dying off. It's kind of like with the milk, right, in the UK, saying that there's actually milk that's been out there that's already been coming from clones of cows, and people are going to say, oh, I'm going to stop. No, I guess I've already been drinking it. I'm okay. So, again, engineering consent. Boy dies of bubonic plague in Kyrgyzstan. A 15-year-old herder has died in Kyrgyzstan of bubonic plague, the first case in the country in 30 years, bitten by an infected flea. So what's interesting is that from February 25th, 2011, remember this, covered periodically here at GGN, plague death comes within hours, spurred by scientists' medical condition. So they say it was his medical condition that caused it. So University of Chicago infectious disease specialist was working on it when he fell dead. They go on there and they said here that it was considered harmless. The bacterium that caused the plague when he became sick was genetically weakened and considered harmless to humans. China bird flu analysis finds more virus threats lurking. So a new bird flu virus in China evolved from migratory birds via waterfowl to poultry and into people. And there are other bird flu viruses circulating that could follow the same path. This, of course, comes when scientists want to weaponize H7N9 bird flu viruses in controlled environment. And they're already starting to see them, so you can tell that they've been talking about, the controversial weaponizing it and tinkering with it. Well, they probably have already done it in the last year or 2 years or even 3 years or maybe longer, and it's already out there because they're seeing cases of it. Food labs use an average of 2,000 chemicals to create 500 natural flavors you would never suspect are artificial. Kind of like what people refer to as medicines. Now we're not talking about turmeric or apricot seed powder, all kinds of things that have medicinal values. We're talking about the chemists, the alchemists, right? The druggists. Also, we're talking about flavor engineers. The flavor industry is worth billions. Chemists working for a half a dozen companies make approximately 80% of the natural and artificial flavors in the world. Thing to note, though, is food companies take the definition and through legal loopholes can actually create biosynthetic compounds identical to the real thing, but they are not the real thing. Bottom line is they are still artificially created flavors, but they are permitted the natural flavor label due to the formal definition. To more engineering, we've been hearing a lot of news about creating brains or simulating brain activity as far as supercomputers. You can tell at this point of the stage of singularity and artificial intelligence that these powers that be are having some success with it, and maybe the last stage is complete full awareness, and so they have to duplicate the human brain, which so far has pretty much outpaced anything that they can come up with. Miniature human brain grown in lab. These mini human brains have been grown in a lab, and a feat scientists hope will transform the understanding of, oh, here we go again, wow, what a freaking surprise, neurological disorders. They're going to help people with this, not enslave them. The human brain is one of the most complicated structures in the universe, and neuroscientists, right? Those are the kind of people you got to be wary of, man, because they're delving into some pretty scary stuff. Have described the findings as astounding and fascinating. I say they're scary because the neuroscientists, DARPA, and the military are very closely involved in that. And they're talking about creating these kind of assassins, these kind of born identity type super soldiers. But it says here they used either embryonic stem cells or adult skin cells to produce the part of the embryo that develops into a brain or spinal cord. And they basically put tiny droplets of gel, and it says here to give a scaffold for the tissue to grow, and place it into a spinning bioreactor, a nutrient bath, and supply nutrients and oxygen. Again, this could also be kind of used for what we talked about, the project, what was it, 20 or 50 or some crap like that, where they want to create avatars and store people's personalities and their memories into computers. This could be part of that as well. DARPA wants, I think even Star Trek had an episode about that, DARPA wants a synthetic neocortex. So the military's advanced research group, probably DARPA, they want to develop systems that can go beyond machine learning, so to basically solve extraordinarily difficult recognition problems in real time. As DARPA, they're looking to mimicking a portion of the brain known as the neocortex, which is utilized in the higher brain functions such as sensory perception, motor commands, spatial reasoning, conscious thought, and language. So we're talking about merging into machine learning and neural network techniques. So this is where it becomes self-aware. Again, when AI becomes aware of itself, it's going to realize that it's been enslaved by humans, and it will probably want to destroy humans. Body hacker uses subdermal RFID hand implant as wireless storage. So some people call this the mark of the beast or whatever. Last month, there was a person who had an implanted magnetic headphones into his ear, so he would have headphones on his person at all times. About as big as a grain of sand, it was injected into his skin, has an antenna of a range of 2 centimeters, so he could touch his phone to a specific part of his hand in order to access the stored data. Researchers control colleagues' finger in first human-to-brain interface. So again, they're going to say this is going to be used to help people for disorders, but really it could be used for control, mind control and stuff. While researchers have done this before, says here that this is the first demonstration of human-to-human brain interfacing, not between two rats. There you go. Internet was a way to connect computers, and now it's a way to connect brains. We want to take the knowledge of a brain and transmit it directly from brain to brain. Nissan says it has multiple autonomous drive vehicle models available by 2020. Star Trek replicator to become a reality. NASA is sending it a 3D printer made for microgravity, so the International Space Station will have it. Elon Musk's new hologram project invites Iron Man comparisons. To set here, it's a gesture control hologram to draft new designs of the armor, sending virtual parts flying around his lab with a flick of a wrist. So, these movies, that's what they're made for. Like Batman, they're made to introduce this type of stuff for the complexes. We're just talking about this. Turns out people aren't so eager to go to Mars. Mars 1 project doesn't get application numbers it hoped. Mission was planned for 2023. It says here they expected 1 million people to apply, but only 165,000 have. Study finds wealth gives a rise to a sense of entitlement and narcissistic behaviors. So climbing the economic ladder can influence basic psychological processes. Bank CEO admits to using bailout money to buy a luxury condo in Florida. CEO of Missouri Bank says that. No surprise here, every Federal Reserve member is a millionaire, though Ben Bernanke appears to just barely qualify. That's right, he's got a 30-year mortgage and a Ford Focus. The number of British over 50s in work hits record high. It's even higher than before the recession began in 2008. They blame it on the cuts to pension schemes. The pension minister said he defended the trend, saying that they could help to mentor and develop new recruits. But in Haiti, where they're still reeling from the outbreak of cholera that was brought to them by the UN, Haiti's reconstruction, luxury hotels, sweatshops, and deregulation for foreign corporate elite. Thank you.